Welcome to Everyday Dharma Talks, where silence becomes insight. I remember a time when I believed I was a builder. Not of houses or bridges, but of a life. My life, I had a blueprint in my mind. A perfect design for happiness. It involved a specific career. A certain kind of home. A particular type of relationship. I spent my days gathering the materials the right. Job the right, friendships the right, possessions. Convinced that if I just assembled everything according to the plan, the structure would be complete. And I would finally be able to rest inside, safe and content. One year I came very close. I had the job with the title I wanted. I was in the relationship I had dreamed of. I lived in a place that looked just like the picture in my head. I stood back and admired my creation, waiting for that promised feeling of permanent satisfaction to wash over me. A strange thing happened instead. A quiet, unsettling anxiety began to creep in. It was the fear of losing it all. The fear that a strong wind might come and blow my carefully constructed house of cards down. And the winds did come. They always do. A project at work, one I had poured my heart into, was suddenly canceled. The reason was a corporate restructuring. Something completely out of my control. It felt like a foundational wall of my perfect life had been bulldozed. A few months later, the relationship I had cherished so deeply ended. It wasn't a dramatic collapse, but a slow, painful drifting apart. Like two shores receding from one another. The beautiful house started to feel empty. The silence echoing with the absence of my expectations. I was devastated. I had followed the blueprint perfectly. Yet here I was sitting in the ruins. I felt like a failure, lost and bewildered. In my emptiness, I started taking long walks with no destination. I would just walk and observe. I watched the clouds form, change shape and dissipate. I watched leaves turn from green to gold, then fall and crumble back into the earth. I saw buildings rise and old ones get torn down. One evening, sitting by a river, I saw the reflection of the full moon on the water's surface. It was perfect, a shimmering silver disk. But then a gentle breeze rippled the water, and the perfect moon shattered into 1,000 dancing fragments of light, waiting for the water to still so the moon could be whole again. But it kept changing moment by moment. And in that moment, watching the shattered, ever-changing moon, a profound peace settled over me. I finally understood. My mistake wasn't in the building. It was in the blueprint. I was trying to build something permanent out of materials that were never meant to last. I was trying to draw a perfect, unchanging circle on the surface of a flowing river. My suffering didn't come from the changes themselves, but from my desperate resistance to them. I was trying to hold onto the reflection, instead of looking up at the moon itself. The core lesson is this: we suffer not because life is imperfect, but because we expect it to be a permanent structure we can build and control. True peace comes when we stop trying to force our rigid blueprints onto a world that is, by its very nature, a beautiful, uncontrollable and ever-changing flow. We all seek happiness. We chase it like a beautiful butterfly, believing that if we can just catch it in our net, it will be ours forever. We think it lies in the next achievement, the next purchase, the next relationship. These things bring a momentary thrill, a burst of pleasure. It's like a firework lighting up the night sky, a spectacular, dazzling explosion of light and color. We stare in awe, our hearts filled with excitement. But then just as quickly it's over. The sky is dark again, and our eyes are left searching for the next spark. This is the nature of fleeting pleasure. It is dependent on external things, on conditions being just right. And because all conditions are constantly changing, this kind of happiness is inherently unstable. It leaves us in a state of constant craving and anxiety, always needing another firework to break the darkness. True and sustainable satisfaction is something entirely different. It is not a firework, it is the sun. The sun doesn't burst into the sky for a fleeting moment. It is simply there day after day. Its warmth is gentle, constant, and life-giving. It doesn't depend on a grand event. It is the steady, quiet source of all light and warmth. This is the nature of true contentment. It arises not from getting what we want, but from understanding the nature of reality itself. This deeper satisfaction comes from recognizing and accepting the three fundamental laws of our existence. The first is that everything is impermanent. Just like the clouds I watched on my walks, everything in our lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies, our relationships, our possessions, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is static. Nothing can be held onto forever. The second law is that this very impermanence, when we resist, it leads to a sense of dissatisfaction or suffering. When we cling to pleasure, we are disappointed when it fades. When we try to avoid pain, we are distressed when it inevitably arrives. Our struggle against the natural flow of life is the source of our deepest anxieties. It's like trying to stand still in a rushing river. It is exhausting and ultimately impossible. The third law is perhaps the most subtle. It is the realization that there is no fixed, permanent self or I at the center of our experience. The me that I was so desperately trying to build and protect was itself just another changing process. My thoughts, my identity, my ego, they are not a solid entity. They are more like a story the mind tells itself. A story that is constantly being revised. True satisfaction, the warmth of the sun, comes from letting go of the struggle. It comes from accepting that life is a river, not a fortress. It is the quiet joy of floating with the current, rather than fighting against it. It is the peace of knowing that we don't need to frantically chase fireworks, because the sun is already and always shining within our own awareness. I invite you very gently to look at your own life. Look at the blueprints you are holding, the detailed plans you have for how things should be, for who you should be. Look at the areas where you feel the most tension, the most anxiety, the most disappointment. Is it not in those places where your blueprint clashes most fiercely with the reality of this flowing, changing world? The invitation is not to tear up your plans or to stop having hopes and dreams. It is simply to hold them more lightly, to see them not as rigid commands, but as gentle intentions, as a direction to paddle in, while knowing the river will have its own currents. The advice is to begin practicing the art of observation without immediate judgment. The next time you feel a strong wave of emotion, perhaps sadness or frustration, or even intense joy, try not to be swept away by it. And try not to push it away. Instead, just for a moment, be still. Acknowledge it. You can say to yourself, "Ah, here is sadness," or "This is what frustration feels like." Notice it as you would notice a cloud passing in the sky. Observe its nature. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it heavy or light? Does it have a color or a temperature? You will notice that, like a cloud, it is not solid. It has no fixed core. It shifts, it changes. And if you just watch it without feeding it with stories, it will eventually dissipate. This practice applies to everything. When you are drinking a cup of coffee, notice the warmth, the aroma, the taste. It will only last for a few moments. When you are with a loved one, truly be with them. Listen to their voice, see the light in their eyes. Know that this moment is precious precisely because it is not permanent. You are gently training your mind to align with reality. You are learning to let go of the war against what is. You stop demanding that the reflection of the moon on the water stay perfectly still. You begin to find a deep and profound beauty in the dance of the shimmering broken light. This is the path out of suffering and into a peace that is not dependent on anything outside of yourself. True understanding is not found in a grand, dramatic revelation, but is woven into the fabric of our small daily moments. The universe is whispering these three laws to us all. The time, we just need to learn how to listen. Think of the steam rising from a hot bowl of soup. You see it curls and dances, and then it is gone. That is impermanence right there in your kitchen. It is beautiful and it is fleeting. You don't get angry at the steam for disappearing. You simply enjoy its warmth and aroma while it is there. Can we learn to treat our joys in the same way? Consider the feeling of thirst on a warm day, and the deep satisfaction of the first sip of cool water. That feeling of relief is a direct experience of the easing of dissatisfaction. We experience thousands of these tiny sufferings and cessations every day. The itch that is scratched, the confusion that becomes clear, the brief loneliness that is met with a friendly text message. See these not as problems, but as the very rhythm of life itself. And what of no self? Watch your own thoughts. A thought about work will arise uninvited. Then a memory from childhood. Then a plan for the weekend. They come and go like characters on a stage. Are you the author of every single one? Or are you the quiet, spacious awareness in which these thoughts appear? Noticing this space reveals that you are much larger and more mysterious than the constant chatter of the I. You take yourself to be. Meaning is not at the end of a long road. It is here. It is in the feeling of the sun on your skin, knowing it will soon pass behind a cloud. It is in the taste of your morning tea, knowing the cup will soon be empty. It is in the sound of rain against the window, a reminder that the world is always changing, always washing itself clean. By embracing these simple truths, that our struggle against change is our only true problem, and that we are not the fixed, solid thing we imagine ourselves to be, we find freedom. We find a quiet, unshakable joy in the simple, profound act of being present for it all. Thank you for following the podcast. We will meet again in the next story. Be well.